feel like I should be on The Voice, which would send all of you screaming for the other room. Hi, we are almost there. We almost get to drink wine and eat cheese and be collegial. So let us get through this. I feel quite joyful, actually, following behind the data panel today, because my team at Five Forest has spent almost 10 years trying to get wine brands to use data and working through the pitfalls, working through the big brands, working through the small brands. And I almost feel like that today we're going to be talking about data 2.0. So before I begin, let me just say a great big thank you also to Levi, who's in the back, Stephanie, Kim, who's coming up the aisle, all the team from the Wine Sales Symposium who managed to get my butt here from Barcelona for today. The first speech I ever gave in Santa Rosa many years ago was on the topic of how to sell wine to millennials. And I've sworn I never really wanted to give that speech again. That was some years back, before all of us had been traumatized by a global pandemic. All right, am I going there? There. Too much technology, this is my life. Wine marketing has come a really long way since then, as we see with our panel discussions today. And that is in no small part to that global pandemic. Wine brands have adopted technology. Yay! D2C is completely normal. We've opened doors to communicate directly with our audiences that at least when I started Five Forest, wine wanted to know nothing about. These are some of my favorites. Gen Z thinks the best kind of party is to make PowerPoint presentations together. And we're worried about selling wine to them. And yet we are still sitting here asking ourselves the question, how do we sell wines to? Is it millennials? Is it Gen Z? Is it locals? Is it tourists? Is it people drinking in moderation? Is it each other? Is it our club members? But to get the answer to that question can't start right here, right now. We have to go all the way back to World War II. The world had experienced trauma. To be precise, the parents of the boomers had experienced trauma, and the boomers were a result of the homecoming. Boomers, they were the largest generation ever born. They were born into a world of patriotism, church on Sunday, community potlucks. They could own a home and feed a family off a single wage. They had trust in their institutions, and they believed what they read in the newspaper. On the surface, those boomers were a productive, homogenous cohort. They bought homes at the same time, they got pregnant at the same time, they moved up the corporate ladder at the same time, and they retired at the same time. Of course, they smoked on airplanes. Men weren't supposed to cry, and interracial marriage was illegal. Smart business people and good salesmen saw opportunity in their phases of life. People like Eli Broad famously followed the boomers' path, leveraging their stages of life for profit. Affordable homes, financial services, retirement planning, and then eventually the death industry. And the idea of generational marketing took hold. Along came Gen X. Nobody ever talks about us. I even noticed in the data panel that they just glossed right over us. We're kind of happy about that these days. We grew up with TV and birth control. You might even say that we were the TV and birth control natives. We learned that smoking on planes or anywhere maybe wasn't the healthiest option. It was okay for men to cry, sometimes. We could marry someone who was a different color, but not the same gender. We were, at the time, the most educated generation ever. But there was no living off of a minimum wage anymore. So instead of a balanced pursuit of trades and professional degrees, we toddled off to university and borrowed money to study things like communications and engineering in hopes of one day getting well-paying jobs. We learned that even Mr. Brady could die of AIDS, that leaders could lie for oil, and that student loans are forever, although maybe that's changing. I don't live in America, so I'll give that caveat. And notably, the boomers learned these things too. And to many of them, it mattered. Along came the millennials. They grew up with the internet and cell phones. You might even say that they were internet and cell phone natives. They were, at the time, the largest, most educated generation ever. They learned that they could ask for what they wanted, but if they did, we'd get pissed. They learned that a college degree was useless because they now needed a master's to get a job. But even with that master's, if they wanted to live in the city, they were probably going to have to flat with friends. And it's hard to have babies when you're flatting with friends. They learned that their remote control doesn't always work. There was no living off one wage, so they embraced the side hustle. And they were tired, so they embraced self-care. And the boomers and the Gen Xers learned these things too. And to some of us, it mattered. And now, along comes Gen Z. They grew up with social media and climate change. You might even say they are the social media and climate change natives. They are the largest, most educated generation ever. They also grew up with mass shootings, war, protests, financial uncertainty, pandemic, and now a raging mental health crisis. They may live at home forever. I have two of these. Just everyone. That's why I come to conferences. They've learned that gender is fluid. But along the way, the millennials, the Gen Xers, and the boomers experienced these things too. And to some of them, it mattered. In fact, going back to our lovely data, when we look closely at the data, when we stop looking at each generation individually and start looking at the big picture, we see that they aren't really as different as marketers and the media like to tell us. Their opinions, attitudes, and beliefs are not as disparate as we've been led to believe. Even their marketing channels. This one's a little bit hard, but pay attention to the green line and the red line. The green line is how many use email, thank you, for online shopping, and the red line is how many of each generation use email for customer service and to communicate with businesses. SMS. Content. Not really that far apart. Great example is YouTube. Find me a wine brand that's really excited to use YouTube. I try to ask them to do it all the time. Podcast. My favorite, US TikTok users by age. Not really as different as maybe we think they are. What about where we purchase? I'll read this because I'm going blind, and so I just assume everybody else is too. The second and third panels. Second, how do consumers prefer to purchase products? How do consumers prefer to purchase products? Say that 10 times fast. Through an online retailer selling a variety of products, such as Amazon.com, is the second panel. And the third panel is directly from a company's website, such as Apple.com, or all of your D2C sites. So, the reality today is that this woman right here is more likely to exhibit the characteristics of this woman then of this woman. Nowadays, smart business people and good salesmen are beginning to understand that the phases of life have nothing to do with age, and that generational demographics are bullshit. And Mark Ritson and I are not the only ones saying this. Even Pew has changed their game. This is actually really interesting. If there are any geeks in the room, go and read the Pew Research articles on how they've changed their generational data analysis. So for us, it's really exciting to see our wine industry having come such a long way in such a short period of time. We have adopted digital. We are adopting data. We did it quickly. We've done it under duress. We did the best we could with the data that we've had or how we knew to get. But now it's time for us to actually embrace all that digital can tell us about our audiences. And that means we have to step away from simplistic cohorts whom we want to believe are homogenous. Generations, but also race, gender, education, family, employment, location. It's time that the wine industry adopt a human-centric approach to our business growth. And that means that recognizing that our customers are real people with totally unique motivations, aspirations, needs, dreams, and emotions. It means walking a mile in their shoes. And that means getting to know them. And I actually really loved that Debbie mentioned that in the panel right before me, if any of you were here. So yay, there are other people saying this. And to do that, we're going to embrace psychographics instead of demographics. Does anybody use psychographics in any of your marketing work? It's like, yay, awesome. So psychographics are the qualitative or subjective information that we use to better understand what matters to our customers. They're the soft and cuddly, squishy side of marketing that can either feel hugely intimidating or kind of like hocus pocus and maybe we're making shit up. So robust psychographics can help you tailor your messaging, your content, your website choices, the data that you use, how you speak their language, and how you build a connection. They can help you develop effective personalizations, such as, we've got Commerce 7 in the room. I don't know if anybody's using Commerce 7, but to understand segmentation and use of personalized content on your website. They can allow you to design cost-effective, targeted marketing campaigns that return results. And more importantly, they help you build trust because you'll engage with an audience based on their interests, not just yours. So if you Google psychographics, you'll find a whole bunch of different versions of it. These are the ones that the team at Five Forest use. Start with personality. Over here on the left is the ocean style of personality analysis, infamously used by Cambridge Analytica some years back. I think we might all be familiar with that one. And of course, there are dozens of other options for how we assess individual personality. But the point is that by coming to recognize the personality types of our audiences, we can create campaigns that resonate with their different natural tendencies, assuaging their fears, speaking to their preferences, creating delight. Effectively, we are saying, we see you for who you are. Interests. What do they like to do? How do they like to spend their time? What do they love? This is actually of paramount importance in an industry like wine, where the lifeblood of much of our work is collaboration, partnership, tasting room experiences, and promotions. A great example is Krug. Krug aligned themselves with the, I have to read this, French Institute for Acoustic and Musical Research to create immersive auditory experiences illustrating the concept of individuality in music. Over the course of a year, the former Krug cellar master worked with the deputy director of the music research to create 10 soundscapes that encapsulate the most striking individual characteristics of wine. They worked in partnership with De Vialet to create a custom Gemini series, and very much appealing to the luxury, high-end, quiet, coded luxury consumer. Tennis fans in the room, we all know that Moet and Roger Federer were a match made in heaven. None of us can outpace F1, I fear, right now. At least not in my house. And that leads us to lifestyle. Not quite the same as lifestyle marketing. So lifestyle in the context of a psychographic is, how does a person spend their day? What does a day in their life look like? I will admit here, and it's in fact a positive, that there's quite an overlap between our lifestyle and our interests. But when we talk about lifestyle, what we're talking about is the day-to-day cadence of our lives. So habits, commitment, work, social, parental duties, housing, relationship status. These factors impact their day-to-day decisions and can help us craft content that speaks to the specific needs of their lifestyles. An example, daydrinker.com, within their menu, you can see that they have tackled every dietary requirement, low and no alc, and even possible reasons for selecting a particular item. I really love this one. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. This is Le Grappin, if I recall correctly, 1.5, yes, Le Grappin 1.5 Bagnums. They rolled out in 2020, but the point is that they're premium French wine in a Capri Sun bag, because we Gen Xers actually do rule the world. It's a great example, though, of understanding that we have an audience, maybe of singletons, who still want to drink wonderful wine, but the $7.50 is just a little bit hard for them to stomach, as it should be. Need delivery? I live in Barcelona. I haven't had to have a car for 4 years. I can tell you every wine delivery service that can get a bottle of champagne to my house in 60 minutes or less cold. I have friends who live in New York who've never owned a car. For those like us, actually understanding our delivery options and can you help make that happen is a major purchasing criteria. Social status. Are we reinforcing exclusivity? Are we leveraging aspirations? I think this is one that is like the dirty little open secret of marketers. Whether luxury is the norm or luxury is an aspiration, messaging and the customer experience can make your audience feel like that this is where they're meant to be. And that means spend their money. I assume everyone out there has watched Succession. It was kind of like wine lover bingo. I think that we all sat there and were like, ooh, who of our friends are in the room? What do we know? What are they drinking? A personal favorite. Has anyone ever looked up Instagram for wine cellars? Wine cellar Graham, who knew it was a thing? Yeah, kind of a favorite haunt. If you want to take a look at what people are dreaming of, and probably none of us will ever have, I recommend that you do a deep dive. What about core values? I think we've taken this one on. Not certain that we're always doing it exactly the way we should be doing. So our core values, of course, go beyond our opinions and our attitudes to speak to the heart of what matters to us as consumers. Shared values, as we know, open the door to lasting relationships, while conflicting values, or I will say nowadays, no values, can rapidly segment out those for whom values are paramount. Great example in the market. Handful of years ago, Martini said, we're not going to bother with demographics anymore. We're going with entire values-driven campaign for our 160th celebration. Torres, of course, led the way for sustainability. We have dozens of brands working in this space now. But early on, they were the first ones who made it popular for wine to message everything that we were doing, big and small, on site. I've titled this slide, "It's a Whole New Way to Party with Wine." Some wines shout their values out. Other wines make a space for community. For each of these, there are dozens of examples of brands who are succeeding because they've understood the intersection of what matters to them and what matters to their audiences. So, how do we become one of those brands? This is where we go from theory to actually making shit work. Digital has made this so much easier than it's ever been before for you to understand the psychographics, what matters to your customers. So let's take a quick look at the technology at hand, how it can empower you to better understand the real people who love or who will love your brand. Market research, we all know about that. The one thing that I'm going to say, narrow or broad, local or global, paid or free, dig in. There is a literal world of research at hand. Just in this room, in this conference, in this seminar, in the awesome presentation that's going on in one of the next rooms, we have reports, data, sometimes demographics, as a matter of fact. Some that you might not think about. So Arani Global, if no one's heard of it, it's an international think tank for the world of fine wine. They release regular reports about countries, how key players within each country are setting their criteria for what does and doesn't sell within that region. They also have a labs program that they work with individual brands. Wine Intelligence, very well known for their bespoke market research. LiveX, very well known for their research into the secondary market. Of course, we've got Wine Market Council. We have regional organizations. I would say that it's imperative that you read the trade news beyond just wine. There's one left off this list. Drinks, tech, fashion, luxury, beauty, food, and of course, travel. We can learn so much about what matters to our customers if we just remove wine from the equation and look at the other factors that are impacting their lives right now. To do that, don't forget the basics. Google Trends, Statista, Kantar, Minter, Global Web Index actually has fabulous, we're not supposed to talk about generations, but they do have fabulous data on Gen Z. Euromonitor, Gartner, and Pew. So again, don't just stick to the wine research. Observational research. Everybody in the room is doing this. Every wine brand I know is doing this, and they just don't think about it. Few industries are as capable of observational research as the wine industry, and that comes down to one lovely, unfair advantage. Our wonderful tasting rooms. We have these amazing spaces where we can watch and we can listen and we can pay attention and we can learn all about what matters to our customers. Similarly, we make and sell a product that people love to talk about. You have a question about a product, a club, an event, a label, a price point, just ask them and be prepared to listen because they will talk your ear off. There's no need for formal focus groups, although I'm not discounting the value of those when we have tasting room, dedicated club members, emails that go out. We have one client, I'm waving to Mike, my business partner in the back. We have one client who sent out an email and wanted feedback on their club and literally got hundreds of open-ended, very lengthy responses. Point is that digital has made all of this so much easier, even audience testing. This does not have to be formal and robotic. If you want to roll out a new label, you want to make a change to your branding, online preference testing is fast, it's easy, and it's cheap, and it's available to everyone in the room. You want to know how? There we go. How your audience feels about club? You are literally a Survey Monkey and a MailChimp away from getting their honest answers. Website analytics. This is a space that my team lives in a lot. I'm not going to lie. GA4 has made this a little bit harder, but it's still possible to get meaningful site analytics. We rely on Clarity for our customers or our clients because it's free. Customers like free things. But there are so many. Hotjar, Full Story. You can use a robust program of UTM parameters. There's always A/B and multivariate testing. Social media. I picked this picture just for you, right there. So, what was the last time that you looked at the social media accounts for your highest lifetime value customers? Because there is a treasure trove of information about them to be found. Pinterest. Oh my God. You can find out what color they want their bathroom, where they're going on holiday, and what sort of wedding dress they want to share. Instagram. Same exact thing. What matters to them? What do they care about? Who do they follow? Values. And you can also do something called social listening. Not very popular, a little bit harder. Probably need someone on staff who's skilled to set it up. But if you're using social media management platforms, they make it quite easy. So whether you set these up, whether you use manual listening in your SOP, it is essential that we listen to cues that help us find openings where we can better serve our audiences. And now, with a real-life understanding of who, what, when, and where, we can finally look at the why. With all of these real-life insights, painting a picture of real people, not data points that we don't really know where it came from, not broad market demographic-based cohorts, but actually the people who care about our brand. And we can walk a mile in their shoes. But we have to ask ourselves, when we get to this point, what is the motivation for their purchase? I'm happy to share this with anyone. This is from a doctoral thesis in 2012. This is actually the motivations rubric that we use at Five Forest when we're working with clients. Summary definition of 10 motivations to purchase and consume luxury goods. And can everyone read it? Again, just DM me, slide into my DMs, and I'm happy to send it to you. This is, for us, ideal because for most of our, in fact, for all wine sellers, we are not rent, we are not food, we are a disposable income product. And this is probably the best version that we've seen that will allow you to slot your users into something that makes sense. What is the purpose of this purchase? I think this is a bit of a cautionary tale. We have a thing in wine where we like to define people and make them fit them into these nice little boxes. And examples of that, fine wine drinkers are fine wine drinkers, grocery store wine drinkers are grocery store wine drinkers. Often our decisions have nothing to do with whether or not we can afford it, whether or not we can access it. You know, they instead are based on very personal moments in life. And I am quite fortunate, just like all of you, that I'm surrounded by amazing wines. And some years back, personal story, my mom was in a coma in the South, and I don't know, has anybody ever been outside of New Orleans? All right, so we're in a tiny town called Slidell, Louisiana. And the only thing that I can eat and drink close to my hotel is Black Box Tetra Pak and Waffle House. And that cupcake vineyard got poured into that cup and walked into the Waffle House with me. And that was some of the best damn wine I've ever had in my life. So just remember that we all have different moments and different occasions for how we consume wine. So I'm going to end with a little story. This is Diva Giles. At 25 years of age, Diva opened a bar in Ponsonby, New Zealand called Beau. At any given time, you can go into Beau and you can find tattooed, pierced Gen Xers. You can find world-traveling 80-year-olds. You can find yuppie 25-year-olds. Her wine list ranges from a $15 on-tap glass of natural wine all the way up to $600 bottles of champagne, and all of them get sold regularly. Year on year, they win national awards. They've grown so much that they've had to take over the space next door to them. And I had the opportunity to interview Diva about what she thought at a time when the world was saying, millennials and Gen Zers aren't drinking wine, young people aren't coming into our fold. How do we actually make these people our customers? Talk to the humans, not the industry, not the concept, and not the wine. Talk to the humans in your spaces. And if there's one thing that I can impress upon each of you as you wrap up today's conference, this is it. Set aside the idea that people are neat little packages that we can pare down to what's simple and what's same and what's clean. Use the myriad quantitative and qualitative tools at your disposal to paint a rich, vivid picture of your audience. Not your neighbor's audience, not Sonoma's audience, but your audience. And then, knowing those things, make yourself matter to them. Does anybody know the reference to the slide? Oh, yeah. Kick it down. Tell me. It is a song. It's also a scene out of Saltburn. You want to watch Saltburn? Saltburn. Funny story about this. So, as a result of Saltburn, a story that is very much geared toward Gen Zers, It's Murder on the Dance Floor was the most listened to song in January of 2024, with a whole new generation discovering the songs of our youth. The point is, there's always someone who's going to be willing to take your place. And human-centric marketing is your competitive edge. There we go. We're done. We get to drink wine. There are never Q&As at the last session of the day because everybody wants to go and enjoy themselves. But I do have a microphone, and if anybody wants to say something, I will happily share it with you. Says they'll send it out. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate you being here. See you out there.